All right, we're live. Hey everyone, welcome to Victory Condition Gaming. My name is Doug. Today on the show, we're playing TRIUMVENE. It is an RPG on Kickstarter right now. It's hit its funding goal. It's going crazy. It's by Peter Watson-Wailes, which Wales, is that Wales, right?
Yeah,
there we go.
Watson-Wailes.
Peter Watson-Wailes, and it is just going crazy. And you should take a look at it if you're interested in anything that we're talking about today. Check out the link down below in the description. In the meantime, let me introduce my co-host, a man that you've probably seen a time or two on this channel, Joshua Melville from Halloweenville. Josh, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely, guys. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you. And then the man of the honor, the person that we're here tonight to celebrate his huge success on Kickstarter so far, Peter Watson-Wailes. Peter, thanks for coming on and talking about TRIUMVENE with us.
Thanks. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Yeah, it's cool.
So this project of yours just kind of exploded. I heard about it, I think 2 or 3 days before you launched, and it was really interesting. You had this really cool mailing list that folks signed up for, and if you got other folks to sign up for the mailing list, they get rewards. And then it hit Kickstarter, and just boom! It was phenomenal.
We funded in 85 minutes.
That is ridiculous.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
and we've never done a Kickstarter before, so this was a total new thing as a hobby project. I mean, the background to it, if we kind of start right at the beginning,
sure.
About a year and a half ago, I'd written a book, and I got to the end of writing it, and I kind of sat there and I thought, actually, the setting is way more interesting than the book is. So I thought, I'm going to ditch the book. I'm going to rewrite the whole thing as a tabletop RPG, because I had a 4-hour day commute, and I was like, okay, I've got to do something with 2 hours sat in the train every day. So I came up with this. That project evolved a little bit. We had our first playtest in May of last year. We've been refining it. We've had groups playtesting in every continent except Antarctica. So if anybody's watching this from Antarctica, if you're at Ice Station McMurdo and you want a copy, please, that would be brilliant. And then I could tick that off the list. So we had a whole bunch of groups playtesting it. Playtesting style was slightly different. We ran that in basically an agile development, software development kind of way. And I could go on about how we did that for hours, but that's really boring. We don't sit here and talk about project management philosophy. That's dull. So we playtested for basically about a year. Decided eventually that this was in my day job. I run a marketing and customer experience consultancy, and I thought, what better way to showcase what we do and the theories that we have about where our industry is going than to put our money where our mouth is and actually launch something. So I thought, well, can I create a brand, launch it, have a physical product out that people will buy in basically a month and a little bit? So I had a thought about how we could go about doing that, and that turned into the referral program that you guys saw. So we put up a landing page basically saying, sign up, and if you refer people, we'll give you some free stuff. 30 odd days later, we had about 3,000 people on that mailing list.
Wow.
So that's went awesome. Pretty well.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, we've had a whole bunch of those people sign up. Every time we do a mailing on it, we get more signups from that. And I'm looking I'm not spamming it, right? It's just letting them know, when we added our stretch goal, I was like, okay, well, this is a thing that, thanks to the huge support that we've received so far, that we can now do. If you're interested in helping us do this and you haven't signed up, consider it. If you've got friends who might be interested, share it. It's, it's very light touch marketing.
Sure. It's not in your face, click now before,
Oh God, no. I mean, that's just the worst.
Oh, they are. I hate those emails.
So I'm like, I hate that stuff. You hate that stuff. I'm not putting that out. I would be ashamed. I'm not doing that. I want to be able to sleep at night. So, it's okay, we've got a great product. People enjoy playing it. We just finished playing a 3-part mini campaign with Pro Restarter and a few people from that, and that went really well. Everyone had a good time. But and this comes down to, okay, So the philosophy behind the game was I wanted to create something. I mean, kind of finishing on the marketing.
Sure.
First. So yeah, so we built a mailing list. We sent some emails to that, and that works quite nicely. We let people know that we'd launched. We had our first backer. Actually, we had our first backer before I had time to hit send on the email list, because a friend of mine, Dom, and if you're watching this, Dom, thanks. That was really cool. Was on it like a hawk.
Nice.
But yeah, we sent the email out. We went and had some pasta, finished pasta, went on Kickstarter, and we funded. So I was like, okay, that worked.
That's
that was
amazing. Cool. That's amazing for your first project. That's phenomenal, and it shows folks that you really you know what you're doing as far as getting out there and letting folks know what you've got.
Yeah, I mean, this has been marketing in some way, shape, or form, and customer experience work in some way, shape, or form has been my job for 14 years. So, like, hopefully I'm good at it. Or I've made some dodgy life and career choices somewhere along the way. But that's, it seems to have worked pretty well, so that's cool.
Absolutely.
But yeah, let's talk about the game a little bit. So
yeah, tell us a little bit about TRIUMVENE, what it's all about. Yeah, let's get into that a little bit.
So I mean, I've been playing tabletop role-playing games for more years than I would care to admit.
No, it's all right. Yeah. It's good. We all
haven't we all?
Yeah.
We wouldn't be here if we weren't this addicted.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, exactly.
So I started playing them a long time ago, and I've had many years of happily enjoying swinging axes at things. Nice. I love D&D as much as the next guy, and sometimes what you want is just an army of minis, and I want to throw some Eldar down and just watch and roll hundreds of dice and crush things. But sometimes you kind of sit there and go, okay, I don't, in my fiction that I read, I don't want to just sit and read high concept sci-fi space opera all the time.
Right.
I don't want to read fantasy stuff all the time. Sometimes I want to sit there and I want to read something by Evelyn Waugh, or I want to read something by Jane Austen, or I want to read something by Ian Banks when he's not doing his sci-fi stuff, or there's some variety in there. And I see a lot of the big side of the RPG space. So 5th edition D&D, Pathfinder, Fate, GURPS, all that kind of stuff, and they're all reasonably similar in the kind of experience they're trying to offer, which is at some point it devolves into combat.
Right.
And on the indie side, we can see some really interesting stuff with things like the Jane Austen role-playing game that was on Kickstarter last month that funded, and that was really cool seeing that. And there was I can't remember what the name of it was, but the tagline for it was really wanting to when you really, really shouldn't. Like an RPG basically about kissing using the dread mechanic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Of a Jenga tower, and every time you make a move, you pull out a block, and then if the tower falls, then you've got to act on it. I'm like, there's some really cool stuff going on in the indie.
Absolutely.
But it's all geared around stuff that isn't D&D, and I thought
it's more story driven.
Yeah. And I'm like, there's got to be some way of balancing these two things, right? There's more to explore in these sorts of worlds than just the violent side of it. Because from a thematic, from a literary standpoint, violence exists in tabletop RPGs as a way of creating threat, right? There's an objective now facing your players that is hostile in nature, and I've now got to overcome it in some way with my group. But I'm like, that's not the only way that you create narrative tension. That's not the only way to create narrative threat. There's other ways that you can do that. You can do that through intrigue. You can do that through political machination. You can do that through romance. There's all sorts of different ways that you can present the players with, here's a problem, go and deal with it. That doesn't devolve into, and now I hit something with an axe. So I'm like,
Josh, I hope you're taking notes.
Do not hit. Do not throw babies through the forest.
Yeah.
And like I say, I love D&D, and I love Warhammer, and I love Fate, and I love Numenera, and I love the Sprawl and the Strange, and Dungeon World, and City of Mist. If you guys have seen that, it's great stuff. But at some point I want something that's different from that. And so after 20 years of hitting things with axes, I thought, well, I mean, nobody else seems to be making this, so I want to create the thing that lets me explore questions of the human condition in this kind of sort of a setting, in this kind of a world. So I thought, well, fundamentally, questions of the human condition devolve down to questions of choice, consequence, and responsibility. And so everything mechanically in the game gears around expressing this idea that you're going to do things and then there's repercussions. And some of the times you're going to know what those are going to be, and you're going to have to see them, know that they're bad, and still choose them anyway, like lesser of two evils type situations. Sometimes you're going to be sitting there going, okay, there's stuff that we know is going to happen as a result of this, but we don't know what the outcome is going to be, but we'll have to deal with whatever the fallout from that is. And so that was the kind of the where I wanted to do this with. And at the same time, the other side of it was that I don't want to just do it in like a fantasy setting all the time.
Right.
So the game, so the game exists across 3 different planes of existence, one of which is basically an Industrial Revolution period world. One of them's high fantasy, high magic. The other one is hard science, so sort of sci-fi, The Expanse, Battlestar Galactica sort of.
Sure. Okay.
And then over the course of this massive campaign, you can go and explore these different places, sometimes because you want to, sometimes because you get abducted and just dumped into that world. And then it's like, right, deal with it. Okay. And this was one of the really interesting things. I did a Q&A on RPGNet the other day, and someone said, like, what happens if you're a high magic character and you suddenly end up on this plane of existence where magic doesn't exist? I'm like, well, you don't do magic. Nobody else does. You know, it's like, it's not that you're now underpowered.
Right.
Nobody can do it. It's a level playing field. You're not turning up and being God is, the thing.
Right.
Because, and this is the thing, like, life isn't fair. Sometimes you are born in I'm a white guy of, middle class background, and that comes with certain advantages. And is that fair? No, but that's life. Sometimes it's not fair.
It's true.
And you make the most of what you've got. Equally, I grew up in the middle of nowhere in rural Suffolk, surrounded by 10,000 acres of fields. There's not a huge opportunity to make lots of friends who are into nerdy things if you're surrounded by farmers. So, you discover the internet and then you meet friends that way. You deal with the situation that you've got. You deal with the hand that life deals with you. And sometimes that's fair, and sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's bad. And so the game kind of reflects that. There's stuff that you get to choose. There's stuff that you just have forced on you. And it's like, right, okay, deal with this.
Nice. I like that.
And off you go. And sometimes you can deal with it by, hitting something with an axe. And sometimes you deal with that in different ways.
I think that's normally how Josh deals with things.
Yeah. Only when it comes to baby owlbears.
Only when
it way to deal with a baby owlbear. Like, just an axe to the face. And then you take its head and you mount it on the wall as a trophy.
Whatever's not splattered all over your druid.
That's right.
Eldritch Blast will really make a mess of things.
Yeah.
So Pete, let's talk a little bit about you said that there's 3 planes of existence and there's kind of 3 different settings. Can we talk a little bit about the folks that are part of TRIUMVENE? Because I would assume it encompasses quite a few folks, and we've seen some diagrams and some illustrations on the Kickstarter. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
So you kick off on mid-plane. There's 8 major peoples. They're basically the people who govern the major land masses, of which there are 8. There's a whole bestiary that we're including with this, which is about, I think, 60-something odd creatures. Spread across different planes of existence. So there's other peoples you could play too, but like these are the major ones. And we're very aware that having kicked out like all of the traditional fantasy lore for orcs, elves, giants, trolls, all that kind of stuff, we've got to put something in its place. But at the same time, I don't want to put in so much stuff that people are sitting there like, I'm just totally overwhelmed, I can't remember all this stuff.
Right. Yep. No,
there's enough that you've got some color there, but there's not so much that you're going to be sitting there going, what is it that a growl does they like made of stone, or what? Let me look up the rules, because like that's not fun. I'm like, so you've got these 8 major peoples, ranging from sort of pterodactyl people to sort of Godzilla Krogan to polar bears, little dwarf inventive people, You can even play a human if you want. Go crazy.
Yeah, go. I mean,
because that's cool. And a lot of this was inspired by a friend of mine who plays D&D but doesn't come from like the geek background, so he found it really hard getting into it because I don't get like why do elves hate orcs and goblins? Like why is that a thing? I don't understand. I don't just know that.
Right.
And we all have that as like shared language, that we just understand this stuff.
Right.
And I realized like equality in this, like inclusiveness in this, doesn't, in our hobby, doesn't just mean making it available to people of like different genders and different sexualities. Although, I'm all for all of that, and that's great. And I love some of the strides that have been made in a lot of the way that things are being presented nowadays. That's awesome. Even down to things like the art direction, the design direction, and things like the 5e source book reflects that, and that's great.
Yep.
But I'm like, but it also means being inclusive to people who just aren't culturally aware of the kind of things that we're aware of. So I thought, well, I'm just going to kick out everything. We're not having, races. We've got peoples. We're not having elves and orcs and all the stuff that traditional like people from geek fandom are going to know. We've got something that nobody knows. So it's just a blank slate for absolutely everybody.
Nice.
It's a level playing field. So you've got these 8 peoples on mid-plane. You're in an Industrial Revolution era world. And much like, the 18th, 19th century in our world, this is not evenly distributed. You've got some people who are essentially just coming out of their medieval era type of society. So people like the Hennigan and the Lineage, who you guys are going to be playing later.
Nice.
And at the same time, we've got people like the Morand Collective, who are a loose association of inventors and tinkerers of all different races, who are as far ahead as it's possible to be in this world. So they've got steam engines, they're inventing airships, they're inventing the electric light bulb. But totally, you can just go to like some lost tribe of Hennigan somewhere off Koyasina, and they have been uncontacted for the last 6,000 years, and they still pray to the golden gods of old. And the bow and arrow is as far as they've advanced, because they don't need to get any further up, because they're now at the top of that particular tree. And then we then and that lets us examine certain types of questions. So around societal evolution and what happens in first contact type situations.
Sure.
What happens when you go from having a monarchy to a republic, emulating France at the latter half of the 18th century. And so we kind of look at things like that. And then the group will end up on the Golden Plain, which a god decided it was a really good idea to put a whole bunch of people on a single landmass and then make them essentially remove the bounds of mortality so they could live forever. So then you get into some really sticky situations. Like you fast forward 1 million years and the planet's completely full and no one ever dies. So how do you deal with that? So some of the societies have basically decided you've got like a 1 in, 1 out system. So whenever someone pops their clogs through suicide or whatever it might be, then you can go and you can have a baby. And how do you do that? Do you do that by lottery, or do you like have a queue? Do you end up with like really horrible scenarios where it's like, I will pay you to kill somebody so that I can have children? How does that then become fair?
Oh, my word, yeah.
What happens if essentially people don't have to die anymore? What happens if disease is totally eradicated? And these people also have magic, so they can just like almost like Q snap their fingers, and then they've got pretty much whatever outcome they want. So what does that do to the concept of wealth and trade? If you can just decide, I want to have X, I now have it. I want a pile of gold. Bang, I've got a pile of gold. I want a television. I have a television. I want, me and my group of friends, we want to go and pretend that we're Robin Hood, and we snap our fingers and we're off being Robin Hood. Kudos to anybody who gets the Next Generation reference there.
I thought you were just describing Josh's just everyday life.
Yeah.
That's how it works, right, Josh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this is the thing. I was like, on the one hand, this should be this perfect utopia, but when you scratch the surface, it's really broken.
Sure. Yeah.
And so you get these questions about, well, what's wealth? What does a good life look like if your life has no limit on time? Do you subscribe to like the Tarskiism idea of fun theory, that you spend your entire life trying to have fun, and do you get operas that last 100 years and people devoting their life to art because, well, I'm hungry, I just snap my fingers, I just have the perfect plate of food in front of me. I never have to work for anything. And it's why I always thought like Harry Potter is a dystopia, and magic turned up probably about 1940, because if you think about it, their society is totally frozen. It's stopped at a certain point in time and never advanced.
Right.
Like, they're the ones with magic, but all the muggles are the ones who are going and walking on the moon. Like, no wizard has been Neil Armstrong.
Okay, yeah.
So despite that they've got all this supposed power, they've no imagination. And exploring those sorts of ideas. And then finally the group ends up on Fiverse, where all magic is taken away from them. You've got this, high sci-fi idea of a situation where you've got global governance, corporations that are more powerful than governments, unified pan-national global government, the threat of interstellar war, and we explore topics around what it is to rule fairly and effectively and justly. I've got a friend who used to be head of mobile at Facebook UK, and he gave a fascinating talk once where he made me think of something that I'd never thought of before, which was, it was back when Facebook had like 1 billion users. I mean, obviously they're like 2 billion now, so the numbers probably scale 1 for 1. But it was like, he got asked a question as to, when will Facebook Mobile support? When will Facebook Messenger support Linux? And he was like, well, probably never, because you guys are 2% of our population. And yeah, that means you're 50 million people. And, solving a problem for 50 million people should be a priority for us. But when we're on the scale of 1 billion,
it's not really all that. Yeah.
You're just not that important. If we can solve something for 400 million people versus solving something for 50, we're going to pick the 400 every single time. And like, if somebody has some time as a pet project, maybe they'll do this, but probably not. And that's not wrong. Like, you have to make those sorts of determinations. We saw in the start of this year, when everything was erupting around Facebook and privacy and consent of users. There was a wonderful quote from Zuck saying, how did I get to be basically the guy that decides what free speech is for 2 billion people? You're all looking at me saying, decide what free speech is for Facebook. And I'm like, you've got people of different faiths, different cultures. You've got people on there under pseudonyms, because if their real name gets out, the government will come and shoot them.
Sure.
But they want a platform to be able to dissent against their government, and we're provided. Like, how am I the person that, like, I went to college and I created a website?
Yeah.
And now I have to decide what free speech is for 1/3 of the world's population. Like, what do you do with that? And that's the kind of stuff that I thought, like, D&D doesn't let you answer that question.
Right.
But I thought, this is the kind of thing that I'd quite like to give to the players. That, okay, you're called up by somebody who has the world's, the universe's largest social network, and there's 15 billion people on it, and you're registered on it at birth. Okay, how do you solve governance for that? Someone's committed a crime on it in one jurisdiction. Is that a crime globally?
Yeah, no, that's yeah.
And you can't solve that by I'm going to hit them with an axe.
Right.
So this is kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted it to be a game that sort of just holds a mirror up to the world and says, okay, go and explore some of these ideas.
Yeah, it sounds like it's some great things in this. Some great like ideas that you've got in this game that and especially topics that I don't think are addressed in any other RPG on the market at this point. Let's talk a little bit about the mechanics now about Triumvene. Let's talk about it's a D12 system.
It's a D12 system. It's sort of D12 plus buffs and debuffs, basically. So you'll have some attributes. They take the form of, so you've got on the character sheet, you've got diplomacy, fitness, and knowledge. And everything's basically a hierarchy that builds off those. So you can have professions. The part of the mechanics of this was that I wanted everyone to enter basically at a similar sort of level of capability, and that there is no sort of D&D thing of that you're going to start off at basically human and end up at basically demigod. You're all basically competent, capable people.
Okay.
And you can get slightly more competent and capable as the game goes on, but it's it draws from the idea from board games of that basically you have stages in which you advance for things. So there's the narrative system has 3 acts, 15 scenes in total. Every time a scene is hit, whether you're playing it or not, it could just be events carrying on in the world while you're not engaging with them. That's cool. But when those things happen, you then level up. So it's just reflecting basically the passage of time for your characters, that you steadily get better at stuff. But you're not going to be going around hurling thunderbolts unless you can go around hurling thunderbolts on day 1.
Gotcha.
So mechanically, so you've got a D12, you roll a D12, you add diplomacy, fitness, or knowledge, plus, buffs for professions, buffs for skills, the skill with your weapon, the skill that you have in a physical manipulation, which is basic magic. And then you can get a bonus or a negative modifier based on the people that you are. So, if you're a 9-foot-tall Godzilla creature, you've got some buffs for your fitness. If you're a tiny little bat creature, pterodactyl thing, then that's great. You might get some buff for diplomacy, but your fitness is taking a bit of hit. You're not hitting something brilliantly with a staff, so you'll have a -1 to blunt weapons, as an example. So
now
how that works.
Now, the other thing that I really enjoy about this rule set, and Josh, you can kind of relate to this with we've kind of tweaked some of our live play games with the Jamhammer with a rule that's kind of similar, where you can re-roll a die, your D12, but you're going to give the DM what's called a defiance point. Yeah. And which is kind of like our hammer points that we kind of talked about, that we kind of do with the Jamhammer crew, where eventually these points kind of add up, and they can create a lot of bad things that might happen.
Yeah, so I mean, I wanted to write into the system the ability for, you're having a bad day on your rolls. You want, or
it never happens.
This situation, I absolutely have to succeed at this roll. If I don't, the consequences are so bad. Like, we've reached the Godzilla threshold. I don't care what happens. It's worth taking any sort of hit to make this work. So we wrote in this idea of defiance, and the idea is that you can essentially just defy what's happening in the game. You say, I want to win at this. I want this thing to work. And then it happens. But the cost is that every 3 times you do that, the GM gets the ability to say, right, you just fail at this. Doesn't matter if you've got advantage, you can't defy this. You just fail immediately. And I can make that fail in any direction that I want. So one of the things that we have in the game is this idea of cohesion, which is that every time you try and modify the world through magic, the world pushes back. It doesn't like it, basically. So
right.
Below 0 cohesion, because you can cast below 0 cohesion, that's fine, up to a point. So you roll the number that you are under, multiply by a d12, and then you see what happens. So like on a 0 to 40, there's nothing, it's fine, it's all good. On a 61 to 70, you're casting fails and you can't cast anything for 3 turns. Up to like 121 plus, you're killed immediately as you're sucked into a black hole, and everything around you gets hurled towards the point where you were and suffers massive damage from impact. So, and again, it's reflecting this idea that you have choice, but there's responsibility, there's consequence, and sometimes that's fair, and sometimes it's not. It's entirely possible that you could roll that dice, and it's just that, you fail and it doesn't have an effect, or you could roll it and it's fine, or you roll it and you die. And
I like that.
That's not necessarily fair, but life's not fair, and it was your choice to do it.
Exactly.
So that's kind of where we're at with that. So yeah, anytime you fail a roll, you could choose to roll again, and you could just keep doing that. So like if you fail twice, I'm just going to keep rolling until I win.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there was any kind of limit to that, but if you can just keep rolling, that's...
Keep going. You can just have indefinite advantage for as long as you want, at the cost that, you do this 8 times, the GM now has 2 defiance, and twice in the future they can just bang, you lose.
Yeah, no, that's a scary thought.
So we've got that, and then the other thing, which it's in the GM portion, which I didn't send you guys, but it's basically the idea that we've got 2 tokens on the game as well, which are, one is that, and this was designed around the social aspect of the game. The first is that any player at any time can have a gold token, and that basically means that everybody has to shut up and listen to them. I've played with groups where there's people who are social. I'm a fairly big, loud character, and I'm like, I have to shut up at times because I don't want to just I don't want to just run the game for absolutely everybody. And sometimes I need to be quiet, but newer players, they don't know about this quite so much, and they get really excited and they get in the moment, and somebody else can be sitting there thinking, I just want to get a word in edgeways. I've got an idea, or I've spotted a problem, but I don't feel comfortable. So they take the gold token, and then everybody basically has to shut up and listen to them for the minute until they put it back. So it gives an immediate out, basically, for the quieter person or the person who's feeling a little less comfortable in the situation, just to say, look, I just want to have my thing a moment, and then we'll carry on. And that's an immediate kind of thing that happens in the game for them. The other thing is that we've taken the concept of a cross token or a black token from a couple of other games, which is you pick it up, whatever the subject is at the moment, whether if someone's not comfortable with it and they're like, I don't want to explore this topic, because there's a lot of topics that come up in the game which are not happy, they just hold it, and then that just stops immediately. And the GM picks else, and that's no questions asked, that just ends.
Nice. Nice. I think that's very important.
Yeah, because I'm like, I don't want this to, it's not, there's some beautiful moments that turn up in this game. We had in the game that I ran with Pro Restarter, there was a couple, we were basically running like a Casablanca type thing, couple who knew each other from years before, who meet up again, they resume romance, and that's really sweet. At the same time, there's some stuff that happens that's really dark. And some people are comfortable with that, and that's great. And some people aren't. And I'm like, okay, for those people, I don't want them to have a bad experience of this. So, if somebody, I've got some friends who, were near ground zero at 9/11. I'm like, I'm not going to run a game that features terrorism with you guys for very obvious reasons.
Sure.
But like, that is a subject that potentially can come up in this as a thing. So it just gives an immediate out for this just shuts down now. You don't have to explain why. You don't have to give any reason for anything. It just ends.
Nice. That's a very great option to have in your games. I think we're starting to see more and more, games like that. There's a couple that I've already started, that I can immediately think of that have that kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Almost like a kill switch.
Yeah, for topics, which is good because you want to make everybody, whenever you get to the table, you want to make everybody feel comfortable, and you want everybody to have a good time. So I think that's really.
I mean, it's like I literally put up a blog post years ago on my site called like the usual disclaimer, which is basically if you're rolling dice and having fun, it's all good. Everything else is gravy. And I reference it at the start of every post because people like Jeremy Crawford said something earlier on Twitter, and I was like, yeah, I disagree with this. That was a bad idea, and my mentions just exploded for the next hour and a half with people telling me I'm wrong on the internet. How dare you disagree with a guy who's like big in D&D? I'm like, oh Christ! I know you don't do this. Like the guy has a following. So I'm like, don't hate me. I'm just saying. Maybe there comes a point at which you're not playing D&D anymore, and you need to go and play Dungeon World or Blades or whatever. Like, there's a limit to how far you can push the thing and still be playing D&D. And people didn't like that, so there we are. It's great. Play D&D. It's wonderful. I love it. Like 5th edition is great. 4th edition even has its plus points. So I'll get some flame for that, I'm sure. But, hey,
it's all right.
Tactical combat. It's like, what do you want from me? Like minis and 5-foot distances and gridded paper. I'm totally down with that. It's cool.
I'm down with it to a point, and then after a while, it's like
where it stops, and I'm like, no, I want to go and play Warhammer because that's a better fit for it. But,
exactly.
Like if you're enjoying it, whatever it is, it's good.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that statement. So let's talk a little bit about before we start playing, because we're gonna play for a little bit. You want to play for like an hour or so? Is that good? Or how long?
How long? Come up for an hour and a half. That's good. It's good. I've put together like the tiniest little campaign. So
nice.
It's gonna be
awesome. Let's talk a little. The other thing that before we keep going on, another thing that I really like about this about your game itself is that the GM doesn't have to roll anything.
No,
like,
I'm like
you built it.
Sometimes you want to roll. Sometimes, but like, I mean, this is the other side of this. One of the things that I found really early on, because initially you actually did roll. There was a whole like GM rolling thing, and I realized, shit. The problem is, this is so different as a storytelling experience. Like, I can rely on like cached thoughts for if I'm running D&D, because I've run so many sessions. Like, I know how I want a combat to flow, and I know sort of what the timing is going to be like. And if we're, if the group want to go to the circus, and I can, I've got some things I can do with that. Or if they're in a pub, I've run scenes in a pub a million times. That's cool. I've never run a scene where a group is wandering into Parliament and then being called to have to give evidence on how to determine the fate of a people. I'm like, I cannot be rolling and concentrate enough to like run this.
Right.
So I was like, dice have to come off the table unless you want them. So sometimes I'll sit there and I'll be like, I don't know where the story's going to go here. I'm just going to roll a dice and let fate decide. But you never have to roll a dice. It's entirely up to you how often you roll, what you roll for. You can run it like almost like a cipher system thing and never ever roll a dice at all, and that will run totally fine. Occasionally you want to know, okay, are they gonna, when they go through that door, are they gonna fight they're gonna encounter a groll, or are they gonna encounter a whatever else, a shadow, or a Crahirnian? And okay, well, I'll roll. Okay, it's a 6, it's a groll. Off they go.
Nice.
Yep. If you want to do that kind of stuff, cool. But there's no like requirement. The game makes no sort of fiat commandment of that you will do this. So you can just focus on the story, the mechanics, the narrative, making sure that everyone's enjoying it. And the other side of it is that, like, I've learned to be reasonably socially okay, I think. But like, I'm not the world's like most empathetic guy, so I like to watch people in terms of like the body language. Are people relaxed and comfortable? Are they tense?
Sure.
And then I can adjust the pacing and what I'm saying and how the story's going to make sure that everyone's enjoying it. And I just find that harder if I'm also sitting there thinking, oh, and I've got to have this thing turning up, and I've got the dice rolls coming up for these, and I can't do both of these things at the same time. So I'm just going to take like the rolling thing off, so I can focus on doing my bit as well as possible, so my players have the best time they can. Because there's a contract between the players and the GM, right? The idea that you're going to turn up and you're going to play in my world. I'm going to give you an engaging story.
Exactly.
And if those things aren't working, like, that's a problem. And so it's just making it so that as far as possible, there's nothing that's mechanically getting in my way of presenting my side of that agreement.
Nice. Yeah, and that's exactly why I love the fact that there's no GM rolling at all in this. It just, it keeps you in the story. There's nothing worse than having an interruption and, oh, I got to roll this and pause for like a few seconds to get some sort of outcome, and then that just I
mean, and this is the thing. So it's kind of a good place, I guess, to talk about. So combat, although this is a mostly non-combat focused game,
right?
Obviously, there are situations where, okay, you know what, actually, we're solving this, and we're solving this with weapons. And this was the big thing that I have with D&D, is that, especially with newer GMs, I've got a friend who started GMing about a year ago. He's a great friend of mine. I won't, spoil who he is, but he'd be terribly embarrassed. But he's come on leaps and bounds. But in the first few sessions, I was like, combat is dragging, because we're someone rolls, and then we wait and still see what happens there, and then somebody else rolls, and you get into that thing of that people start sitting around tapping on their phones because they're waiting for their turn to do something.
Right.
And I was like, how do I solve that problem? Because again, the agreement between players and GMs is, you come and play in my world, I'm going to give you a good time, and I'm gonna facilitate a good story. I'm like, how can we make the combat side narrative? So I totally changed how combat works in this from the original way that it worked. So we have this idea of that combat basically runs on 2 phases. You have a command phase where the group together state, this is what we'd like to do. Because this group of people, because of the mechanics of the system, know each other. Like, they've been around, they've seen some things together. They don't have to, there's no situation in which they should not have at least some idea of what the other person's going to do. And combat's no different. So it's letting the mechanic of combat reflect the idea that there's some shared experience and knowledge here, and that they're going to be calling out things as they're fighting, like, oh, protect the person over there, or, oh, they're going to get the trade wagon, go and defend that a minute. So they can all just talk about what they want to happen, and then I narrate it as as I see their instructions and then what their opponents are doing, and that lasts up to 12 seconds of in-world combat time. And at any point, they can just say, right, we want another command phase. Something's gone left. It's turned out there's another group of bandits behind these trees who have leapt out, and they're like, okay, we need to deal with that. And it makes it so that it's them co-deciding what's going to happen, not one person deciding this is what I'm doing at this particular point in time, and then I'm waiting while everybody else has their go. It's you're all deciding what you're all doing. And then I'm, in the same way as everything else in the game works, I'm then narrating how this then has played out and what you're seeing as a result of this. And anytime you want to interrupt and you want to change things, or you want to change the parameters of what's going on, you do it. Go for it.
Nice.
Cool.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Now let's talk a little bit about we'll talk about this multi campaign stretch. Originally, you weren't going to do a stretch goals. You weren't going to do stretch goals for this Kickstarter, but you kind of you've got this huge success, so you kind of feel like we were talking before you came on, before we started broadcasting. You're like, I kind of feel obligated to kind of give the backers something, because otherwise it's just gonna drag for 20 some odd days. And so now you've got this whole system in place for a multi-campaign. Tell us a little bit about this, because I thought this is just phenomenal.
So, I've done two things in my professional career. I've built tech systems and I've done marketing. Obviously, you've seen the marketing side in what I did with this.
Right.
But I thought I had this idea, which was that at some point in the future this was going to happen anyway. But I thought, if we get a bit more money, I can do this a bit sooner. And the idea was that you should be able to have multi-group, multi-tenant play. So the idea that you've got different groups playing through different parts of the world at the same time. So you'd have a group set on Golden Play and a group set on Fireverse, a group set on Mid-Play. And they're all doing their thing. And then as they're doing their thing, and initially you'll sign up, you'll register, and you'll say, okay, my group want to play in this environment, and we'll auto match you with two other groups.
Okay.
And then as you play, you'll have things that the GM will be delivered and say, okay, here's a thing that turns up in the world. How do you want to respond to this? How do you want to deal with this? And then based on your response and what your group does and how that unfolds, you've got some options, and you can take, this person's still alive, or, you went to this place, or you didn't go there, or, binary choices, basically.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And every time you make a decision, that then triggers off something that goes to one of the other two groups and says, right, based on this, something is now happening in your world. Basically, there's a group of 3 sets of people who are able to communicate across all 3 planes. And so in lore, they're running things behind the scenes to let other groups of people know this is what's happening. So based on what your group does, other groups then have a different experience. And based on what they do, you'll then get delivered content and say, okay, this NPC has come to you. They've just had something happen to their family. How do you want to deal with this? And so these things sort of start to stack up over time. And then it ends, or it will end with a kind of 3-group multi-party game where you'll have 3 GMs running simultaneously, the 3 groups, or playing simultaneously. And then what happens to each of you as you're playing affects things. I've ran it with some friends, and they were kind of passing messages around on bits of paper, and I was like, this is cool. So we know the theory of it works, and then it's just like you could do this on Skype, you could do it with 15, 20 people, 3 GMs running different things, and that all then happens at the same time. There'll be 3 modes of play, basically: a short campaign, a medium campaign, and a long campaign. Short one will be 4 sessions, so it's just a little introduction as to this is what happens. The long one would assume that you're playing for basically, if you were to play every 2 weeks, it's a 26 session campaign. So if you play every 2 weeks, basically it'd take you a year to run the whole thing. So that's kind of the other thing that we're doing, because I'm like, I love our bit of the world. I love the tabletop role-playing space.
Sure.
But it feels like these games, in mechanical terms, in terms of what you are physically doing, haven't really changed that much since the 70s.
Right.
It's still basically you roll dice and then you make pencil marks on bits of paper. And I sat there and I thought, well, we have massively multiplayer everything else. Why can't we have essentially multiplayer D&D. And what does that mean? Well, it means, different groups. If you treat like the unit of D&D as the group and their GM, can we make multi-group play work so that different things happening in the world happen to other people as a result? So it's almost like taking the idea of the organized play thing that D&D are doing with, but then like making it affect everybody.
That's great. Yeah. No, it also reminds me of what Golem Arcana. I don't know if anybody's. I mean, Josh, you know what Golem Arcana is, but it was a tabletop minis game where it had like a living campaign built into it, and it was a minis game, but it also had an app, and you'd play through these scenarios, and it would collect all the data, and then it would, based on the data, it would tell you. It would tell you the lore that you just created, and it would set up the next scenario, and it was just like this living world, and it kind of reminds me of that a little bit, which was something that I really loved about that game was the fact that you could kind of shape the world.
Yeah, and and it's that kind of an experience, and even going back to like L5R when that was. Like the first versions of that back in the day, when you'd turn up and you'd have a tournament and there'd be people there, and you turn up with your deck, and the story is unfolding, and then that becomes canon.
Right.
Like that sort of a style of play was what I was trying to create with this. And then we've got this idea that the timeline basically is that book ships in October, and then people will get that, and then I'll start on the multi-turn play stuff. And I think that's going to take me about 6 months to build, because I've got a company to run at the same time, and you got a kid. I will just become a father. So
I mean, it's like most people just tackle like one of these things, Pete, but not you. You just like bring it all on.
It's all good. It's all good. Like I know I could do these things. Like I've been doing these for a long time. It's fine. So the plan is that then starts in October. It'll take me about 6 months to build. So we'll be launching end of Q1, start of Q2 next year with the multi-tenant play stuff. And then the plan is that towards the second half of next year, we're then looking at maybe doing, if it goes really well, then we'll start looking at creating an event series around that, where we'll essentially run the multi-tenant play live in person with groups of people. So you can turn up for a weekend basically and run the whole of a campaign where every group is affecting every other group, and we'll have people passing messages between tables, and
that's awesome.
You run the whole digital thing in person, so taking it back the other way.
Sure. I love the idea of that. That sounds amazing.
So yeah, but like that will be end of 2019 at the absolute soonest. So
right.
We'll see for that.
Well, let's talk. You said you've got a expected target date of October for your book.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that before I keep saying we'll just keep talking about this and we'll talk about this and then we'll keep playing.
We'll play for hours. It's all good. I'm happy.
I'm so excited to have you on because this is I love. As soon as I saw your project, I was really excited about it. So So you said a target date of October that we're in. It's June right now.
June, let's call it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it'll be the end of June by the time your campaign's done. That's aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of content that we've got to create based on some of the Kickstarter rewards involve like create a people's, plonk your party in the game, and we'll write them in an event, and, and they then live in that. So there's a little bit of content that we've got to create based on that, but the game is pretty much done.
Okay.
The rules are basically solid now. We're down to the editing stage, and the edit stage has been totally rewrite the entire game,
nice.
But we're getting towards the end of that now. I mean, it's like that's how that rolls. So there's some stuff that we were like, actually, based on some of the feedback from 6 months ago, a group had a situation where somebody felt uncomfortable because of some of the way that some of the rules ended up playing. I was like, okay, yeah, that's a problem. We fixed that. Equally, there have been bits where, because part of my thing with this was I wanted to create something, because we're kicking out all the existing lore. I was like, I want to put in a framework for you guys to play with, but I don't want to do I don't want to just write books of lore that you guys have to learn.
Right.
It's like,
absolutely.
When I was 19 and like a 400-page rule book arrives, I'm like, yes, this is the shit.
Right.
Now I'm a man in my 30s. I have no time. I'm like, a 300-page rule book arrives, and I'm like, Christ, this is 3 months worth of work to read.
Exactly.
I've got 7,000 rules that I've got to make notes of on index cards. So like they're fighting in zero. Like does that? Oh God, what? Just roll fitness. I don't know. I'll make it up. It's all good. So like the game opens, the rule book opens with essentially 2 pages of, if you've played any sort of tabletop RPG before, you can take this. This is the entire game in 2 pages. Go.
Nice.
Wow.
And it bookends with essentially the same sort of thing for the GM. It's 4 pages of, this is absolutely everything that you need to know. Anything else is gravy.
Sure.
Like, everything else is either lore, or it's giving a, for edge cases on things, this is what happens. So you could, in theory, take those 6 pages and run the whole game. So that's kind of the one side of it. And then we're going through finishing the edit work at the minute. So we've got the last bits. We had some requests to write in society and governance law for the various races, because some of the events, like I'd said to people, in some of the events, it's like, okay, you go to this place and they've just come out of a revolution and now something's happened with how they're setting up a parliament. Because I wanted to reflect things like, one of the things that was really interesting after, in real world terms, getting really real for a bit.
Sure.
After the invasion of Iraq back in 2001, the mission accomplished, George W. Bush on a carrier, and then it's like, no, okay, you've just deposed somebody, but there is no government. You've just created a power vacuum, which had a totalitarian regime basically ruling this place for the past several decades. What do you think is going to happen now? Like, you're not setting up any structures. You can't just go in and say, be democracy, and make that happen. Like,
that doesn't quite work that way.
As it turns out, that doesn't work. Who knew? Like, in a bit of the world where people have been, kicking 7 bells out of each other for the past 6,000 years, that doesn't play too well. And I can understand why. Like, it's weird that would happen. I remember I had a conversation with a friend shortly after 9/11 happened. We were like, the grown-up dispassionate response to this would be like the British response to the IRA, which is that it sucks that you keep hurting us and we're going to try and stop you, but we're not just going to go and invade Ireland to stop you. That's not the solution to this. And I was like, whatever response to this is going to be so much worse than what's happened today. And it's going to totally lose the moral high ground for the West in what then happens. And of course, that then happened. And so you get this situation where you've got something like, and the example that I used directly for this is the introduction of the French Republic.
Okay.
And so what happens when you've got an existing set of governance that's removed, and then who comes in? Like, how do you then run a country? Right. And we've seen this examined in sci-fi over and over again, right? You get things like Heinlein Starship Troopers. The whole of the setup for that book basically comes out of the idea that the old ways of government fell after, I think it was nuclear wars, and then groups of soldiers step in to start running things in Scotland, and then based on that kind of then scales up and up and up and up and up, and then you've got a military dictatorship in all but name. And obviously that's then being written against the backdrop of the Cold War and everything that was going on at that time. So there's a whole lot of situational context and political context you can unpack regarding that. Some of it good, some of it not so good. But it's interesting, and that's the kind of thing that we look at in this. But people were like, okay, you've just told us this has happened, go and run with it, and we've got no law. And I was like, well, create it. Like, decide. You're supposed to be playing creative games. Just decide what they're like. But some people are like, no, I want something to work off a little bit.
Sometimes
like, okay,
that helps. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so we're going and we're adding a little bit of lore for all that kind of stuff, because the like getting really meta on the game. The theme with how I wanted all this to feel was like reading, like when you're standing in front of an impressionist artwork. I took my wife over to Paris for her birthday last year, and I've loved impressionist art for years, and we had the great fortune to go to a gallery and have a viewing of a Monet exhibition. And you just sat there and you sit there in front of like these 6 water lilies painted, and you sit there, and initially you look at them and it's just this wash of blues and greens, and there's nothing, there's no detail. It's just these colors. And then the more you look at it, you start to see, okay, if I sort of defocus my eyes a bit, because the guy was going blind at the point where he was painting these, and he did a whole series of his garden at the same time, and you can see basically his eyesight degrading in how he's painting. It's fascinating. But the more you look at it, you see, oh, okay, I get that, like that little highlighted patch there, that's the flower of a water lily. And initially you don't spot it. It's only when you sit and look at it for long enough that it all starts to resolve, and you get out of these broad strokes these tiny little details. There's a wonderful Manet painting of a washerwoman walking down the side of a river, and the entire of this woman is like 5 brush strokes, but you can tell that she's this farm woman and she's got this heavy build and she's laboring, carrying this bag, washing. And you could see from the scenery that's around her and the setting that she's in, what kind of a life that she's having. And I'm like, there's nothing here in terms of detail, but there's so much detail.
But your brain translates it into something more.
So that was my aim with this, was to take like the Impressionist artwork style of that we're going to give very broad strokes of things. But the more you kind of sit and you think about why that's gotten there, how that works, you can sit and you create and you co-create with your group for the detail of that.
Nice. I love that. That's really, really awesome. So yeah, so you've got pretty much the book done. The art is pretty much done.
Yeah, the art's done. We've got all the photography done. We've been working with the community at Unsplash on that. So almost all of the artwork in the game, aside from the characters, is photography and photo manipulation. So, you know, again, no one's doing that. Okay, I'll do that. Yeah. I'll be the guy who does games that have photos.
Sure.
Because this is the advantage of setting things in worlds that are similar to us. I'm like, I can actually go and take photos, or you know, we can work with a community and say, okay, I want a photo of something that's like an early steam engine and, you know, a Victorian railway. Okay, well, that actually exists. Like, someone's got that photo. We can find the perfect version of that photo and then use that, and then you can see what this looks like.
Sure.
And then you decide where it goes. You decide, you know, what city is this traveling from and to. You know, we're giving you a glimpse of something, and then you unpack that.
Nice.
So yeah, so artwork's done, copy's done, doing final edits at the minute. The system's built out, play tested. It works, which is the big thing. Like,
awesome.
People seem to have fun playing it.
That's great.
Which is cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now let's give you did have an artist for the peoples in your game. Let's give because I think artists in a lot of these games get under recognized. So let's recognize them.
Huge shout out to my great friend Shay Fergus, who is an amazing concept artist. Has done great stuff for people like WWE and basically every AAA game studio and AAA film studio you can think of. Her work's in there somewhere. She's hugely independent. So she's like, she doesn't need like the industry recognition, but like, you guys totally check her out. Her website's illustrata.co.uk. She rarely but occasionally streams on Twitch. Yeah, she's enormous's talented. It's been an absolute joy working with her on this. I basically gave her the descriptions of the characters and said, just go nuts. Like, we've been trying to work together for 10 years. I've known you for more than that. You know, I trust that whatever I give you, you're going to knock it out of the park.
Sure.
So,
and she did.
Yeah, and she did. It's great work. It's really cool.
Nice.
I couldn't be happier with it. So yeah, huge
Very
props
cool.
to Shay on that.
Absolutely. Josh, I think I'm ready to play. I don't know about you. Do you have any questions or do you have anything?
No, I'm excited. I love the concept. I love the idea. I'm ready to jump in.
All right. So yeah, I guess Pete, this is me. This is what I do. This is me handing my show over to you. This is
I will put it on my head like a crown. And I shall wear it nobly and ingloriously, darling. Okay, so the character creation stuff, we've sped up a little bit. So you guys have some pre-gens that I put together. But part of this, like there's this 5 turns to the character concept that we have. So let's just unpack that a little bit. So you guys obviously have the character sheets. I've done all the point allocation stuff for you already. But give me a little bit of backstory about your character. Tell me a little bit about who they are, about where they've come from. yeah, just put a bit of meat on the bones for me.
Josh, you want to go first?
I'm trying to find the character sheet because mine is blank.
Yours is blank.
Yeah, the one that the PDF that I got was blank.
Oh no, there should have been another one that.
There should have been numbers on that. I can ping that over to you now. Hang on, let me.
Well,
grab that.
While we're talking, I'll just tell folks that I'm a lineage. Is that how you pronounce it?
You are a lineage. So you're Estelis then.
I am Estelis. That makes me like a big giant Godzilla type lizard creature. If I read that correctly.
Yeah.
And it looks like that I am a monk.
Yeah.
This is Monk's Vow on there.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to create the idea of like these two peoples, one enslaved the others for basically 5,000 years.
Right.
And then there's been a civil war, there's been an uprising, and the lineage have gotten their freedom.
Nice.
Is the backstory to it. But some of them decided to stay.
Okay.
So your character is somebody who's decided to stay in that sort of a situation. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So, and then it's I from what I read, it was Josh's folks that that we were warring with, and so yeah, Josh is like this great big. You know what I should have done? I should have put up the illustrations, and I should have screen shared it at this point because they're just phenomenal. But yeah, Josh is like this big, like almost like a pterodactyl type bat creature who enslaved or was warring with mine. I guess I'm just gonna be like a noble monk, and like I have, since we've been in war for so long, I'm gonna be kind of like the quiet. I'm gonna try to like I enter the monkhood as like to try to calm my mind from all the war that took place previously, and I'm trying to find peace inside myself with this monk path that I'm following.
Cool. I'm just about to send the PDF over again.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like. Did you send over Thoroughware or the blank character sheet? Because we had the blank one earlier. The Thoroughware one looks like it's.
Let me see if I've got.
I'll just drop that in an email again now. Anyway.
Or if you want, you can drop it in the chat and.
Yeah, I can grab it there.
Let me see here. Sorry, Josh. I thought we had this all.
No, that's okay.
That should be uploading now, I think.
There it is, right there. Let me.
I did name my character because the first thing I thought of when I saw the artwork was the pterodactyl from The Land Before Time.
Oh yeah! A blast from the past.
Petrie.
Yeah. Oh god! Now I'm feeling that takes me back. Wow. You can't see the bald patch from here, but I'm really working on a bald patch on the back of my head. I'm starting to turn into a monk. And yeah, that's.
Let me see if I can find.
That was a great. Like somebody should totally pick that up for today. Like I can totally see that being some sort of cinematic universe.
Oh yeah.
What, the Land of the Lost?
Land Before Time.
Oh, Land Before Time. I'm sorry, Land Before Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it's not.
I mean, like Thundercats is coming, right? Someone's doing that, I've heard.
I've been hearing that for a while. I'll believe
Supposedly.
it when I see it.
Yeah, supposedly it's been in the works for a while.
Like an 80s cinematic universe with like He-Man and Thundercats and all that kind of stuff. That I would so get on board with.
They're supposed to be making a He-Man movie right now.
There is one in the works. Yeah,
in the works. Yeah, I've been following that one because I'm a huge He-Man fan.
All I'm saying is that, like a show with a guy who grabs his sword and it grows and then he becomes master of the universe. There's something, something slightly weird in that. You know what I mean?
Let me see.
Although maybe that's just me, but I'm like, and a villain called Fisto.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there we go.
There we go,
When you sort of
Josh.
think there's reasons for the millennials being the way they are.
Yeah.
There we go.
Steady diet of mildly homoerotic cartoons. Mind you, I grew up watching Ivor the Engine with fox hunting and things, and I ended up as a country bumpkin, slightly posh, living in the countryside in rural England. So,
Nice.
you become
Josh,
what you older.
that should be in your email box. In your email box. Oh, it looks like Jake says, "Have we started yet, Doug?" Jake, we have not. We're actually in the middle of we did a little Q&A with Pete, and then we're gonna be starting here shortly. Originally, I thought I had sent the character sheet over to Josh, but I guess it didn't.
I think it must have been the blank draft one.
Maybe yeah, that's probably.
There's no attachment to it.
Oh my God.
Didn't I just drop this into chat? Yeah, it's in chat.
Is it in chat?
On this. Yeah, it's on the group chat on this.
Let's see. Let me refresh.
Don't you just love it when things run super smooth?
Oh, absolutely.
Hey,
I recorded 3 videos in one day without sound. I don't know what went wrong. And I was so frustrated. I was like, yeah, dang it. And the week before I had another glitch that happened. I was like, oh, I was like, okay, no filming for a while. I need to walk away.
That's when you break out.
Yeah, I was watching a video from Lawrunner the other day. I don't know whether you guys watch his stuff, but it was he was like, yeah, if he does law runs on, he's currently going through TNG and Deep Space Nine, and it's a real blast. Doing kind of digging into the lore behind how everything works, but also like what happened behind the scenes in the filming of things. The man is a mind of stuff, and he's done Star Wars and stuff. So shout out to his channel, Lawrunner on YouTube. Well worth checking out. But he did one recently, and he's like, yeah, if this one sounds a bit like I'm reading from a script, it's because I just recorded 17 minutes of this, and then I realized that I was on mute. So I'm basically just going to say my whole thing again. But this is going to sound rehearsed now.
It's asking for permission to access.
I grant it.
Have
my permission.
Okay, so I hit the button.
Let me see if I can just like make that a thing that you like anybody anywhere. Make this so anybody anywhere can grab this. Save. Right. Okay. Push come shove. Right. Try that.
Try it again. Oh, there we go. Yes.
Hey,
look at that.
Oh, jumping jazz.
There we go, folks.
This is what happens when you live stream, folks.
That's it.
We really should have checked that before the stream.
Yeah, we should.
We just sat on marketing for like 10 minutes.
Hey,
we're into talking about it. We got into talking about the game and what it's about.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's all good.
So let's see here. We'll also talk about what I've got. Looks like I've got a great staff.
You have a great staff. So basically, weapons come in different sizes. I mean, obviously, like not violent mostly. Occasionally, you're going to need something to hit something with. So you have a great staff. I figure you're like an 8-9 foot tall lizard creature. You get a buff to your blunt damage. So yeah, you've got a big stick you can hit things with. Literally,
I'm kind of it's
the American way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like the Morgan. Like if anybody is a fan of Walking Dead, I'm like Godzilla Morgan is pretty much how I'm envisioning myself.
Yeah, that's solid.
Yeah.
You're Godzilla Gandalf.
Yeah, there you go.
They shall not pass.
They shall not pass.
Cool.
All right. Cool. Got it, guys.
Okay. Right, and then so introduce your character, and I'll drop in your own name. It's cool.
Absolutely. Well, my character's name is Petrie, and my trait is Inspiring Companion. I am a Henagon, which, as we've described, is like a pterodactyl-looking guy. pretty awesome. I love the art for that. High diplomacy. Base is 12. So when I'm looking at the numbers here on the character sheet, what do those represent? Like, what's high, what's low?
Yeah, so basically 0 is low, 12 is the maximum that you can get. There's a default in any one thing, and then you can get buffs on top of that. So with a 12 in diplomacy, I think it is you've got.
Yes.
You are basically Picard. Like, you are, yeah, you are speechifying, and it's glorious.
I am Petrie Picard. That will be my full name.
Jean-Luc.
Jean-Luc Petrie Picard. Okay, so knowledge is 9, so I'm pretty well knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Professional skills, a lawyer, and nobility. Ooh, okay. So maybe I, between this war that we were talking about, maybe I was doing some in-between work as trying to settle things like lawyer-y-ish.
Yeah.
I think that's the technical term for it, Josh. Yeah.
Yeah. Lawyer.
My wife was president of the Law Society at the Cambridge, and yeah, she totally confirms that's exactly the word. That's what they use.
That's the.
I'm writing that down. Lawyerly.
Ish.
Ish.
So I do know that let's see, that these guys are, from reading the description, stealthy at night.
Well, if you're a lawyer, then yes. Stealthy at night.
Yeah. Kind of aristocratic.
Right.
You know. Bit uppity, maybe.
A little bit. I don't want to go as far as snobby.
No.
But yeah. But pride in myself and what I do. And yeah.
Cool.
And I think maybe I'll add from there as we go along here.
Cool. Okay, I took the liberty of deciding that you would both get manipulations. Manipulation is basically the settings version of magic. Unfortunately, you don't particularly want to have one necessarily. You only get it as a result of an extremely heightened emotional moment. That could be something wonderful, like the birth of a first child, or seeing your daughter get married, or something of that sort of ilk. Equally, it could be something not so good, like basically any background for any character from any comic ever. So, your parents get shot and you're orphaned, or, your village is burnt down and your wife and child slain and you are Maximus Decimus. And so each of you tell me about something that happened in your background, good or ill, and what it was that made you kind of trigger. What gave you your magical abilities?
I think I like the whole my family was killed, and now not that
I see where Doug's going with this.
I think, because if I'm gonna be, my wife is off camera looking at me like I'm insane at this point, because she's not even hearing this other part of the conversation, that she just was like, what? But I think that's, especially if I'm going to play this whole Morgan monk kind of character, I think, having my family kind of be like a casualty of this war somehow, and that enraged me, and now I'm trying to find inner peace and try to piece my life back together, as I'm going through life alone now.
Okay.
I think that's kind of what triggered my.
That's cool. Okay, so roll me 2d12. Let's find out how many powers you have.
The first one's 11. Second one's 12.
23.
23.
Okay, you have 2 powers.
Nice.
Right. Let's do some quick rolls to find out the time and cost of them. So for the first one, roll me a d12.
That's a 1.
Okay, so it takes 6 seconds to cast, whatever it is. We'll find out what it is in a minute.
Okay, and the second one is a 1 as well.
Okay, the second one will take 6 seconds to cast.
Okay.
And yeah, and roll me another. Roll me 2d12 for each of them.
6 and 7.
So they are going to be they're going to be 6 and 7 cohesion to cast. So for the cost,
Okay.
6 and 7 respectively. And finally, either roll a d6 or roll a d12.
Yep. 6.
Okay. So your initial skill for the first one is 6.
That is a 3, so that's 2.
Yeah. And then your skill for the second one is 3.
Okay.
Now, the thing is, you don't get to choose what manipulations you get. That's done by the rest of the party. So, in this case, let's find out what. What do you think that story would inspire? Would it inspire manipulations around movement, fitness and physical, healing, damage, knowledge and diplomacy, or things that break the universe?
Healing.
Something to do with healing.
Healing.
Okay. Roll me a d12. So the way that this works is that on a 1 to 5, you can have healing touch. 6 to 9, you could have golden light, which lets you heal many things. 10 to 11, resurrection, so you can reanimate the dead as long as they've been recently dead. On a 12, you can just resurrect anything permanently, perfectly.
Okay.
So what do you get?
Okay. Doug, roll or me?
I mean, either. It depends on how cruel we want to be. I think let's make you roll. Let's keep with the idea that he doesn't get to go with this.
All right, a 6.
The game lets it run either way. So what did you get?
6.
A 6. Okay. Do you think he should have healing touch or golden light? Healing touch. You're suffused with healing energies transmitted through touch. You can return HP to a target. Golden light, same thing, but there's a pool basically that you can apply to any number of creatures rather than one creature.
Healing light.
Okay. So make a note that you've got golden light.
Okay.
Right, back to you. So let's roll 2d12 and let's find out how many hit points you can restore.
That's 10. That's 11. So 21.
21 plus your fitness is how many points you can restore.
Wow.
So you're rolling well. That's pretty good.
That's 31, huh?
Yeah. And roll a d12.
1.
You can. It's how many creatures you should be able to heal. So you can only heal 1, unfortunately.
Okay.
There we are. Like sometimes it's not fair. Okay, so you've got 2 manipulations. So if we go back, what do we think for the second manipulation? So your options are movement, fitness and physical, damage, knowledge and diplomacy, or things that break the universe.
Things that break the universe sounds pretty
Cool.
ominous.
Let's roll a d12
like
and
that.
see what the options are.
Okay.
I'm really hoping for Draconite.
5.
5. Okay, so that's just enhanced creature. You can boost any stat that you have. It includes damage, manipulation stats, talent, skills, and so on. However, the skill must initially exist. So roll a d12.
12.
Okay, the boost lasts for 12 minutes.
Okay.
And roll 1 more d12.
12 again.
Wow, man.
Wow! You can boost any stat by a bonus of 12.
Wow.
Nice.
Sweet. Okay, so now we invert this. So, tell me a story about your past.
All right. Well, I was thinking maybe a family member was taken away, maybe locked away. And maybe one of the reasons why I became a lawyer was trying to get them out of jail, but maybe the system that I was dealing with was partially corrupt, and things just went awry, and they were executed for a crime they didn't commit.
That you know they didn't commit?
Right.
Or that you hope they didn't commit?
I'm pretty sure they didn't commit it.
Okay.
Hmm.
So roll me 2d12. Let's find out how many powers you have.
Oh, that's 2. And then, it's double snake eyes again.
Wow.
So
Okay,
that's only 4.
you're going to have 1 power. So what sort of a manipulation do we think this is going to grant then, Doug? Movement, fitness and physical, healing, damage, knowledge and diplomacy, or things that break the universe?
I think. I think damage.
Damage. Okay. Right, roll a d12. Let's find out what options there are available for this.
2.
2. Okay, that's just cut. The target is attacked by a storm of floating blades. Each can be defended against using normal rules. They have a weapon skill of 12 and the stats defined below. So roll me a d12. Josh, sorry.
Josh, go for it.
Yeah.
Although you might want my roll.
I probably do. 8.
Okay. Each blade can do a total of 8 damage. Roll 2d12.
All right.
So this is basically like Hela.
Okay.
Sure.
Twelve.
Each blade gets 12 attacks.
Wow. Okay.
Roll a d12.
Okay. Rolling d12. 6.
Okay, no bonuses.
Okay.
So these are the things that you have at your disposal.
Nice.
Now, going back to the last parts of the character creation, tell me a shared experience. How did you two guys meet? I'll let you kind of discuss this. What happened to bring you guys together?
Josh, what do you think?
Well, maybe you needed a lawyer to help you with your murdered family.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. I like that. I
Right.
like that.
But maybe you were a little bit hesitant, being that I'm the race that you were.
Yeah, no, I really kind of despise the fact that I have to go to you for help, but you're the only one that probably was able to take my case or was willing to help me.
Right, because of me being kind of in between, trying to work out some kind of diplomacy between our two races. Maybe that's how you came to find me.
Sure.
In my travels.
Yeah. I like that. A man of war who can summon a storm of swords, turning his life around and becoming a man of peace. It's a lovely thing. It's almost like Babylon 5, the Narn, Jakar.
Sure.
Yeah. You are Jakar. Which I guess would make your character Malari.
Yeah.
Okay. Each of you, and I don't mind who goes first on this. Tell me about a treasured item that you're carrying.
Ooh.
Some sort of possession that you carry on your person.
I think I carry some sort of piece of clothing that my wife used to wear that reminds me of her. I think that's I always have it like tucked into my pocket or somewhere on me, just to kind of always have something physical to hold on to my family with.
Nice.
All right.
Cool.
And maybe a certain inspirational poem or something that inspired me to make peace.
Cool.
Do you want to say that poem for us right now, Josh?
Roses are red, violets are blue.
It's all right.
I love you.
Josh is like, why do I even help Doug out anymore?
Oh joy. Cool. And then finally, if each of you could take a moment and send me something on chat that's a secret that you hold.
Ooh, secret.
And we'll just keep this from the viewers. I don't mind you guys knowing it, but it's,
Okay.
yeah, let's see what this comes up with.
All right. Which chat do you want me to send it in?
Just stick it in the group chat on the call.
Okay. Okay.
Meanwhile, I will drink some wine. Whoa!
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's not at all disturbing. Like, everybody always goes dark. I always open with, like, it could be the birth of your child, wedding day, you know, your daughter gets married. I was like, no, my family are dead. And my child is dead. And everyone's dead. And I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
You guys are all about the dark stuff.
Let's say, you know.
Whoa, okay.
Whoa, okay.
Wow, Schmidt's getting real.
Wow. That's a good one.
Can you just let me know in chat? Like, does he know? Do you guys know that that's the case, or are you hiding that?
I think it's best if I don't know that, Kate.
Yeah, I would just not say.
Whoa! Wow! Wow!
Okay.
Okay.
Clicking off that, I should have clicked off the chat and didn't see. I wish I didn't see that.
That's a beautiful thing. Wow. Okay. Okay. So basically, that's the character creation done. So let's drop you guys. Yeah, let's drop you guys in. Let me quickly make a couple of notes.
Absolutely.
For some bits to do with those secrets, and we'll be off. Okay. The two of you have been summoned by an advisor to Aelin. Aelin and Rolim are the respectively Queen and King of the Hennigan. You meet outside the great sky tree, Ythemeriel, and you meet Atronia. Atronia was the sort of head servant, you'd think, to the Queen and King. But she's a highly regarded noble in her own right, around the sort of level of a marquess or a duke. Sort of, she'd be in line to the royal throne, probably about 15 or 16 down. So she's not, you know, the prince or princess, but pretty close anyway. Mm-hmm. And would have known the king and queen since birth. Petrie, tell me a little bit about how you know Aelin. Sorry, how you know Atronia.
All right. Maybe she had me do up some documents for her.
Okay.
At some point.
So, I mean, you know, you're in the legal system, so you can scribe court orders and patents of nobility and that kind of stuff. Okay, cool. So, as a result of that interaction, several years ago, she has followed your career since, and in this particular scenario, asks for your help. You received a few days ago a summons requesting that you and a trusted advisor of yours and trusted friend come and aid her with a situation that is developing.
Okay.
Having received this, you respond the next day, and you meet Atronia at the base of Ythemeriel. Says, excellent. It is nice to see you again, my friend. How have you been?
Fair. Very, very busy.
Excellent. Well, you know, the legal profession, the legal system, it never sleeps.
Never sleeps, never ends.
Unfortunately, and she glances as she spots Estrella. I'm sorry. This concerns matters of state. Could you send your slave somewhere else?
Slave. I'm gonna like snarl and just kind of
What's your character's name again, Doug?
Estellis.
Estellis?
Yep.
Estellis. Could you give us a moment, please?
Sure. And I'll turn around and I'll walk, a few paces away.
You see Atronia's face sort of fall a bit shut. Oh, he was the one that you called to help. Really?
Well,
You keep very strange company now. I'd heard you'd become quite the peacemaker, but I did not think that you would associate personally with them. But it's adorable. I mean, I'm sure.
Well, they're a fine race once you really get to know them, and there's just something about them. I've been working alongside with this one for a very long time, and he's just a wonderful person.
She smiles. Oh, that's so lovely. You always were so naive. Oh, it's so sweet. Anyway, it's that optimistic glint in your eyes that meant that your name sprung to mind. And she extends her wing around you and pulls you close. You see, the thing is, Aelin and Rolim are dead. Our king and queen. There was a disease. That is the official word, at any rate. But in her final hours, Aelin came to me and said she believed they were being poisoned. Such a method of dealing with such a family is not how the Hanegon should act, as of course you will be aware.
Yes.
It's a crisis. Esteliar, their son, he's too young to take the throne. He is only 8. And so we fear that some sort of regency must be put in place to rule and advise him until he is of age to take power. But we do not know who to trust if these allegations of Aelin were true. I'd hoped with your legal mind you might be able to dig into this and maybe find out if there was truth in these accusations.
Okay. So a little detective work.
Indeed.
I'll be able to add that to my resume.
Of course, this needs to be quiet. We can keep the news of Aelin and Roland's death quiet only for 1 week at most.
Okay.
After that, they are scheduled to make too many public appearances. We can only stall for so long. You have 7 days. Please, time is pressing.
Absolutely. We are on it. And in the
Excellent.
most hush-hush way as possible.
I knew that I could count on you. And she sort of rolls her eyes, and you get this idea that it's a sort of, yeah, and heaven help me. Nevertheless, she smiles and pats you on the shoulder and then draws her wings back, looks around, just making sure that nobody is likely to notice. Please, I have one lead. The coroner has examined them and confirmed there were traces of cyanide in the body. It is rare. It only normally comes from the human lands, but of course poisoners, they get around. Assassins are present in every culture. But we have been told that possibly it would come from a herbalist somewhere. That is all I can say. You will not be the only ones looking into this, but please move fast.
Okay. Would I already know where the closest herbalist is?
Yeah, so the closest one.
Okay.
So Ythamyril itself has a population of around 10,000. It's essentially the Hennigan capital city, and you'd know where there would be one nearby.
All right. So we'll be on our way. I'll go over and let
Estillus?
Estillus.
Which I'm
Better write that
meditating.
down.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I'm meditating, by the way. I'm sitting there with my legs crossed, and I'm just deep in meditation.
Okay. I will place a hand on your shoulder, and there's no one else around, right? Like, or is she
There's
still
a few
standing
people
there?
wandering around. It's just the sort of normal traffic, but it's no one seems to be paying you any attention.
So I'll put a hand on his shoulder to let him know that I'm there, and I'll kind of get down there with him just to so that we're talking low key, and let him know what's going on about the poisoning, and the lead that we have is that it could possibly come from an herbalist, and that's probably the first place that we should go.
All right, and I will slowly get up from my meditation pose, and I said, "Lead the way. Let's go find these folks."
Okay, so we go skipping hand in, traipsing down to the herbal shop.
Okay. You arrive outside, and you can see Josiah's herbs written on the outside. You've heard of Josiah. I mean, you're not normally a frequenter of their shop. It's even for you, it's very expensive, very refined stuff. You go inside, and you've heard rumors of Josiah's eccentricities, shall we call them. But nothing quite prepares you for, as you walk in silks, a beautiful wide-brimmed hat and feathers coming out the top, you see this pterodactyl-like creature flutter her wings back and say, "Oh, darling, I'd wondered when you would finally come. Oh, please come into my shop." And she plants her wings either side of you and goes, "Mwah, mwah," on both sides of your cheeks. "What can we do for you? Oh, it has been too long."
Absolutely. Oh, it's fantastic to see you. Well, I'm
"Oh,
here
you
on.
brought your pet." And she goes, "Oh, he looks just darling." And she reaches up like 5 feet above her with her wingtips and sort of goes, "Mwah, mwah," on either side of your hips, which is about the best that she can possibly manage.
And I'm going to go like this to kind of get her away from me. And
Oh, don't be rough with me, darling. I have not asked for that, although I'm meeting you. Oh, I can see why you keep him around. Anyway, what can I do for you?
Well, I'm here to investigate. I'm here to see if you've heard anything about any cyanide in the
Her
area.
wings flutter back immediately. Yes.
Do you happen to have any on you, or has anyone come in here requesting some?
There was someone. She scutters to the door and flips the sign around so it says closed. Just come, talk with me. And the expression that had previously been jovial and happy turns deadly serious. She scoots behind her counter and starts rummaging. You hear click, tick, 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 as she starts riffling through vials and little boxes and things. There was some, yes. I had, and she takes out a small box and opens it, and you can see it's empty. There was some here. I keep it around for those of more rarefied needs. It does not have to be a poison. It has medicinal uses in minuscule doses. I called the police yesterday. My entire stash was stolen. I was doing my stock check. It must have vanished sometime in the last week or so. There was a woman who came in asking if I held any, but she was not willing to pay the price I asked. She said she wanted all of it.
Can you describe this woman?
Yes.
In detail. did she have a name? Like, did you get her name?
Yeah, I'm afraid not. I wish I had.
What does she
All I
look
can
like?
say is she was one of us. She was not lineage. She was Henagon. Um, rather tall, but shabby looking. Not well dressed. Maybe like an honored knight at absolute most. She had a scar running from one ear down her back and a notch in her left wing. I don't actually, now I think of it, and she glances over to one side where there's a sort of shelf of bric-a-brac. She did not look entirely unlike our queen, but I mean, a passing resemblance at most. It's very strange. I don't know. But certainly, no one of noble birth.
Was this the first time you've seen her in your shop before?
Oh yes, I mean, I would not associate with one such as her. She couldn't even afford the parsley.
Mm-hmm. You've never seen her in the town as you maybe going back and forth from work to home, or?
I mean,
No?
if she was homeless, I might have seen her. She certainly looked like she might have been, but no, I don't know. I could maybe if I draw you a sketch, and she quickly whips out a notepad and does a quick but reasonably thorough sketch and hands it to you.
Okay.
Make me a knowledge check.
So while he's talking with the shop owner, I'm going to just be looking at various things in the shop and just kind of not really even paying attention, letting him do, because I'm very irritated with the fact that this is the second time that someone's called me a pet already. So I'm already tired of these folks.
Yeah, I mean, you see there's hundreds of herbs. I mean, there's a dozen different variants of thyme. There's 6 of rosemary. There's parsley and sage and turmeric and tarragon in the smaller spice section.
And yeah, since I'm a chef, I'm interested. That part of the shop interests me.
Yeah, you kind of have a sniff of things, and it's obviously all very fresh, very high quality. You think the prices are reasonable, maybe slightly expensive, but you can kind of understand why people are paying, partly for the experience of this total lunatic,
Sure.
and partly because it really is, it's quality ingredient.
Okay, I rolled a 7.
Okay, yeah, you can see what she's saying about that it's a passing resemblance to the queen. It's it's not quite her, but if you were told it was someone in her family, you could go, okay, yeah, that's believable.
Okay. You mind if I take this drawing with me?
Oh no, please, absolutely.
Okay.
It's it's only receipt paper. I have quite a lot of it.
Okay. Just want to make sure. I didn't want to take it if it's.
Oh no, it's quite all right. It's quite all right, darling.
Absolutely. So
honestly, if you'd come over on Saturday, you could take something else with you as well when you left.
Oh, what did you have?
Wow! I'll tell you. You drop back Friday evening. I will let you know.
Oh, it just might be a date then.
Oh, I will ruin you, my lovely little thing.
Oh, you were just too much.
I'm just gonna be over in the corner, like rolling my eyes, like sniffing some spices and herbs, checking out the quality.
Over to you. Would you care to bring your friend?
Oh, absolutely. He loves this kind of stuff.
Oh, really?
No. Oh. I'm gonna sneer. I'm gonna give him such the dirtiest look.
I do not think he agrees. It's quite all right, darling. I understand it is not for everybody.
And
but if you ever change your mind.
If I have any more questions, I'll be back, and I grab her by the shoulders and give her a peck on the cheek, and
Oh, oh, darling.
grab a
I will see
Stellus,
you on Friday
and
night. Thank you very much.
see you on Friday. And I'll grab a Stellus, and we'll head out.
So I'm gonna while I'm sniffing the rosemary, he'll catch my attention. I'll turn around real quick, and my tail will knock over like a whole display of herbs and everything
Oh,
as I'm walking out.
Dude, my herbs! Oh my god!
I am so. Oh, is there anything I could do to make up
Sorry.
for my friends?
Roll a diplomacy check. If you've got any buffs to this, and I pray you've got buffs to this. Let me bring up your character sheet a minute. Let's see if we've got anything that we can help you
6,
with.
7, 8. I think it says
None.
+1 for people.
Yeah.
So if I rolled an
And you've
8
got persuasion. Okay, so you can get a 6 buff on this.
Oh, okay. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
14. Okay. I mean, she's pissed off, but you cute.
Yeah.
So, it's quite. I will. They always do this when they come in. They have no appreciation for the time I spent setting up these displays. Honestly, it will be fine. I forgive your pet.
Oh. Thank you so much, and I will see you on Friday, and we'll talk about maybe making up. I'll do extra things for you to make up for this. Okay, darling?
Absolutely. And she lifts the display back up and starts putting these hundreds and hundreds of tiny little boxes one at a time back on it.
And I'll nudge Estella. Let's go.
All right.
So when we go outside, I'll show Estellas the picture drawing of the woman, and Estellas, do you recognize this picture? The drawing here?
Estellas, roll me a knowledge check.
Let's see here. My base is 4.
Yeah. With a -2.
With a -2, so I rolled a 2, so it's really low. Yeah.
You have no idea who this is.
Nope.
They have wings and they are bat people, and some of them are crazy.
Apparently so. Well, it doesn't hurt to ask, right? Okay. Let's see. Where should we go from here? Any ideas, Estellas?
She looked homeless.
Yeah. Well, yeah. She described her as kind of in raggedy clothing. She's got a scar on her and a notch in her left wing. And she's pretty tall. Tall and shabby.
Maybe.
I mean, it's still daylight if you want to go check some alleys, or we can do that in the night. We can also go down to the morgue or the coroner's office and talk to them too.
Yes, I like that idea.
Okay. Well, let's head down there.
Okay. So it takes you a little while, and you have a sort of light conversation as you go. And eventually you make your way into the morgue. The coroner's office and morgue, rather unusually for the Henigon, is still run by a lineage. And as you wander in, you see this enormous, even for a lineage, he's huge. He's nearly 10 foot tall and massive across the shoulders. It's enormous lineage. You see Decus on a little name tag on his jacket as you wander in, and he's sort of hunched over a counter, waiting basically for people to come in and either bring in bodies or request information.
Okay.
He sees you come and says, "Hello, what can I do for you?"
Hello, Decus.
Yes.
So you had 2 bodies that came in the other day. possibility of them being poisoned. Would like to talk to whoever did the autopsy.
You are with the family?
Yes.
Indeed. I will need some identification first.
And I got to assume we're not carrying ID cards or anything.
I mean, you'd have kind of documents with you generally as a lawyer.
Okay.
To kind of to give you access to legal records.
Okay. So maybe I have like a little card or something I can, and I'll show it to him and say, what's the female's name that hired us for this?
Atronia.
Atronia. So, Atronia sent us here, and I'll hold up the card for him to see.
We were told to expect someone like you.
Yes,
Please,
yes.
This way. And he moves and opens this huge door, which you kind of look at it and you think you probably couldn't open it even with, if you were leaning on it, but it's just like effortless. And the two of you wander through. He looks at you, Astralis, and just sort of nods.
And I will nod back.
Don't see many of us around here.
No. I don't really like to be in this area.
My sympathies. I'm still indentured for the next 200 years.
Oh.
My grandchildren will be paying off our war debts.
Actually, I'd like to interrupt. I'm overhearing this, and I say, what kind of debts? Maybe we can help.
My father fought in the war.
Mm-hmm.
He did rather well. My mother, unfortunately, stayed with us here. And when he died, 10 years were put on our indentureship for every life he'd taken.
Oh, wow.
We have not the money to get out, and we did not leave in the war, so now we are here.
Okay. So it's just you, and do you have any children?
I have not. I have one brother.
Okay. Well, I'm a legal lawyer in this area and have been working to settle a lot of cases and free your kind, as I did with my friend Stellis. I've been helping him out along the way. So I'd like to offer my services in between this investigation to maybe assist you along, maybe get some hearings going, to free you to make your own choice whether to leave, or maybe we can work out some sort of something with the courts in the area, if you'd like. I mean,
Make me a persuasion check.
okay.
So that's going to be your diplomacy plus persuasion.
Okay. So 9, 10. You said I get a +6 for
plus 6 in persuasion. Yeah.
So 16.
Cool. Yeah, he's reasonably satisfied that despite being a Hennigan, your heart does weirdly seem to be in the right place. Well, you can look us up then after. And he reaches into his coat and draws out what you take to be a business card, but it's about the size of an A5 piece of paper. And he sort of holds it between two nails and gently tries to place it into your hands.
And I take it. All right, I will. I will contact you. Stellis, could you hold
And
this
I'll
for
reach
me?
over and I'll grab it, and I will put it. I'll stick it in my robe somewhere in like in like an inside pocket.
Yeah, it's fine. Like for you, it's cool.
Yeah,
You know, it's a small piece of paper. It's great.
exactly.
It's handy.
All right,
It's nice
so
having something that's not fiddly to work with,
yeah.
frankly. Actually, you can work with. You can even read it and everything. None of this fancy script. It's written in like what you'd think of like in real life as sort of like a 5-year-old with crayon sort of a thing.
Nice.
Even Doug could read it.
Oh.
Oh!
Okay.
And
You know, it's been a you know, the Doug burns have been kind of light this session, so I was waiting for them to eventually show up.
well, there we go. Anyway, he nods, and I thank you for your consideration. And
Absolutely.
gestures for the two of you to make your way through.
Okay.
As you do so, you see a couple of Hennigan, quite young. They're probably only 15, maybe 18, probably medical trainees, shuffling around with bits of paper and taking a body out on a long sort of slidey thing. I don't know what those things are called. My wife would. Anyway, them slides out and the body on it and chucking a cho chag and then and door closes and they see you coming and go, oh, hello. How may we help you?
Yes, we're investigating 2 bodies that came in here the other day and the possibility of them being poisoned.
Ah.
And I take out my card and show it and say, Atronia sent us.
We were told to be expecting someone like you. Although I thought it might have been that guy who came in the back entrance earlier. But
How long ago?
Oh, only about 10, 15 minutes. Not chin, wing, scar. But, you know.
It was a guy?
A lie. I mean, you know, a slightly high voice, but it seemed reasonably male. Hard to tell.
And had a scar, you say?
Yeah, ear to neck, I would say. Presumed it was a remnant from the war. We weren't alive back then. Although my brother was, but he was one.
Could you describe a little bit more detail? What was they wearing?
Strangest thing, slightly scruffy looking.
Hmm.
But said that they'd come on behalf of the family, and of course we know who the family is. And
okay,
you know, nobody should know who is not, you know, of the family or someone connected to them. So we assumed they were legit.
and I pull out the drawing and I said, did he look something like this?
And they take it. They think for a moment and they pass it between. Yes, that's the person. And then you see them look slightly afraid. But they were on behalf of the family?
No, we believe not. What did they come in here for?
To collect the bodies.
You let them take the bodies?
Oh, only one. They haven't returned for a second one yet.
Which one did they take?
Rolim, the king. Aelin is still here. Oh no. And then you see them kind of look to each other, and then the one that you're not talking to basically bolts out the door.
Where's he going?
You hear shouting voices next door. It was not from the family! Oh my God! What if we have lost the king?
Estella,
you hear a deep bass. Oh no!
Estella, can you go check on that guy?
Sure, and I'll lumber through the.
Yeah. So outside, you see the two of them are. I mean, you know, the Hennigan is pretty freaked about this, and the lineage is. There's a sort of a grin which you detect of, like, a Hennigan is in trouble. That's never a truly awful thing.
Right.
But at the same time, like, they have lost the king, and he will probably hang for this at best. There's some nervous tension in the air.
Okay. And I will say to them that we'll do our best to find the king.
I hope you find him soon. This would not be good.
No, it wouldn't. Any additional information you can give us, we'll be glad to try to track him down as fast as possible.
So I just love the way you sound a bit like an Elcor from Mass Effect. Chastising rebuke. Cutting remark. The Hennigan relates that they don't really have anything else that they can say, but if you hang around, they're probably coming back for the other body.
That's true. And so I turn around and I lumber back into the other room with Petrie. What do you think about sticking around for when they come back?
This is hard because if we should set a time limit that if they don't come back, we should get moving, because if we sit here and nothing happens, and because we only have so long to make this happen. So we can hang out here for a little bit. I do want to speak with this guy a little bit more about what they found and the reports and all that stuff, and maybe take a sample from this body that we can keep with us and maybe take to the herbalist to confirm the whole cyanide situation or something.
All right, it's your call.
All right, so I'm going to talk with this mortician or coroner for a while, and try to get as much information on what they found in the bodies, or if they just like how they came up with their conclusion.
So he relates that their mouths, while smelling of wine, there was a detectable faint odor of almonds. And while discussing with Sylvan, who is Aylin's sister, they got the meals for the day. There was no mention of nuts or almonds or anything on it, so they assumed, given the scent that they detected, possibly cyanide. Medical technology in Ethereal is not what it might be in the rest of the world, so they've sent a sample of blood off to be tested elsewhere. From what they can do, it looks like there were traces of cyanide that had built up over time. And this seemed to... Sylvan, who had come with the bodies to report the death, had reported that her... To put it delicately, her lover, Theremer, would be intrigued by this. The coroner asked what that might be by that, but she wouldn't elaborate. And frankly, she's way too high above his pay grade to have been able to dig any further.
Okay.
Make me a knowledge check.
8. And my base is 9.
Okay, so 17. Okay. You remember of a case a couple of years ago that crossed your desk that implicated Theremer in a poisoning.
Okay. So, Astellas, I think hanging around here might be a waste of time. I think we should go speak to Theremer.
Why do you think?
I'm getting from the reports that I'm seeing and what I'm being told, this wasn't just like a single shot poisoning. It was built up over time. So I think, someone on the inside has been poisoning maybe his food or his wine.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
and then talking with the coroner, he told me, that so and so said that Thermo would not be pleased to hear this, or I get the feeling that we need to go in that direction.
All right.
Stellis, just out of interest, how much do you particularly care that these two are dead?
I don't really care. I don't really care for their kind. I'm only hanging out with this dude because he's helped me in the past.
Okay. Cool. So so where do you guys want to go next?
I'd like to see if we can find this Therma.
Okay. Therma, you know that for the minute, Sylvan, Aylin's sister, would be likely to assume the regency. She's the sort of logical choice if no one else can be found.
Okay.
Okay.
And Therma will be with her, so they'll probably be somewhere around the royal palace at the top of Yithamariel.
Okay. Let's. Why don't we do this before we take off? Why don't we stay here for a couple hours and see if anyone comes back for the second body? Let's do that first. But I don't want to stay here all night, because we got to keep moving.
Sure.
So, yeah, let's do that. Let's take a couple hours and wait. Hang out with these guys, and maybe I can get some more lowdown on Decus's family and other information while we're waiting.
Now, what's the plan when if they come back, Josh? Are we going to ambush them, or are we going to follow them, or what?
That's a good plan. I think we're just going to kind of observe. Maybe you can. Maybe we can get a name tag for you, and you could be Decus's like other hand. Helping out, and I'll put on some scrubs and help these guys out. Help these guys out, and hopefully, if they do come in, they will just assume that we're part of the staff, and we'll observe them, and then we'll ditch our disguises, and then maybe follow them, because wherever they take the body, maybe that's where the king's body would be.
Now, would 2 lineage be kind of out of the norm?
No, it wouldn't attract too much attention.
Okay. All right. I think that's a good plan.
Okay. So you have a chat with them. They manage to get a name tag and find one of Decus's spare overalls, so that you're looking, reasonably fine. You're not totally thrilled by that it says Maximus, and you just know that there are going to be jokes about this. But you can sort of play your part. Petrie, what are you doing while you're waiting?
Just assisting the other corners with maybe cleaning or whatever, they toe tagging.
Yeah, okay. So you make yourself busy and you kind of help out a bit. About an hour passes and you hear a knock on the back door.
Okay, and I will motion for the one of the other corners to go ahead and answer it, since they've already seen this person, and the whoever's knocking may associate them already.
The door opens and you see someone come in. They're a Hennigan. They're not the sort of scarred, notched wing one that you've heard of. This one you recognize. It's Theremer.
Okay.
He scuttles his way in and says, I have been sent to retrieve the other body. Are they ready to travel? Are they prepared?
Does
And
the other...
Yeah,
What does it say?
the Hennigan
respond.
sort of looks to you a little bit and
I
then
give a
sort of
nod.
says, okay, nods and lets Theremer in. You see the body of Aelin laid out on the table, wings folded, arms just lying across her chest sort of peacefully, eyes closed. You see Theremer, and he kneels in front of the body. And his head goes down, and you see the sort of flight spike from the back of his head going up. He folds his arms back reverently and just kneels in what looks like prayer. And it lasts for a couple of minutes. He stands up and says softly, but just loud enough that you can hear, "You should have been my sister. If only you would have listened to my Sylvan. This is such a shame."
So
you see a tear just sort of slowly course down his face.
So I'll walk over, put a hand on his shoulder, and say, "I'm sorry for your loss. Was everything okay with the king's body?"
He was. He looks at. Sorry, who are you?
Oh, who am I? I'm Picard.
Oh, Picard. Good name. I mean, you hear there's no real. It'll come out soon anyway. It was. Cyanide does terrible things. Somebody, we had to get them away and get them interned as soon as possible. Preparations must be made. They will be publicly displayed. We had to begin the embalming process, obviously. I do not know why Orellim would do this to the two of them.
Who?
The king.
The king himself would do this to both of them? You think?
That is what Sylvan has said. I mean, who else could? They have food testers and this is their highest security. I took her word for it. I'm sorry. I must be going. I'm under instructions from the palace. I must take her body.
Absolutely. I understand. I just want to make sure everything's okay, that we did our job, and
you have done the support of the Royal Morgue and coroner has been exemplary throughout. I am sure. Picard, you said.
Yes.
I will make note of your duty. You will be well rewarded for your loyal service in this terrible time. Thank you.
Okay.
And he nods at the other two, and they put the body on basically like a wheeled coroner's tray. Drape a white cloth over it. And the only giveaway that this is any other than a normal body is that Theremer produces the cloth himself. And you see there's gold embroidery around the edge of it.
Hmm.
And he sadly starts wheeling the body out. You notice a lineage hand take the front of it as it goes outside and help start to move it away.
Okay. And so as he exits the door, I'm going to take off my disguise and go grab Astellas and kind of just stay in the doorway and watch. And then we want to stay enough distance away where we wouldn't be suspicious, but enough to observe.
Okay, so you're being stealthy.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, the two of you can fit in reasonably well. Astellas a little bit less so, but it's not totally bizarre for a lineage and a Hennigan to be wandering around. I mean, you are the two peoples of this land, pretty much, and so you keep your distance a bit. Both of you make me fitness checks. Let's see how well you deal with this.
Oh, I rolled a 12 plus I have a 10 base.
Nice. So that's 22.
Yes.
Petrie?
15 total.
50. Okay. Yeah, you're reasonably certain you haven't been spotted. There's a couple of hairy moments where you see them sort of shuffling around, but you pick up a melon and you examine its ripeness. Yeah, it's almost a sort of alas poor Yorick, but a melon.
Alas, poor melon.
Yeah.
Mine.
Oh, what a piece of work is melon! How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty. Hashtag Shakespeare. Yeah, you're reasonably certain you're. If they've noticed, they don't mind that you're following, but you don't think that they.
Okay.
They make their way to Ythemariel, and you look up, and it's the most enormous structure. I mean, you've been here a couple of times before on official business, but it always sort of takes your breath away seeing this structure soaring 500 feet up into the air around this enormous tree, 20 floors worth of Hennigan engineering at its finest. You watch as they get into one of the many sort of hand-operated lifts, and a lineage starts to take them and the body up. You see them go to the 19th floor, which is the lower floor of the Royal Palace.
Okay.
I look over at Petrie and how do we get up there?
Oh. You think you're strong enough to scale it? And with me on your back?
Not without getting noticed.
You don't think we can do it without getting noticed? What time of day are we at now?
You're starting to get towards the evening. The sun's sort of starting to set. It's
starting.
I mean, the light's dimming a little bit. It's sort of golden hour-ish.
Okay. Well, no one should recognize us from the morgue since we had disguises on, hopefully. Do you want to go up and just see if we can get on the elevator and just go up?
If you want to.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking we got two options, okay? We can try to get on the elevator to go up, or we can wait till the light goes down, and it's a little bit dark, and try to stealthily get up to the 19th floor by scaling with me on your back.
I vote elevator.
Okay, let's go.
You make your way over to one of there's probably a dozen sort of lift type structures around the base. You make your way over to one of them. A large lineage sort of stands there with some ropes in his hands. Just which floor?
19, please.
He says, ding, and then starts to. He hums a sort of a slightly Muzaki tune. as you make your way up.
Wow, this
Fifth
is sweet
floor.
elevator music.
From this height, you can see the textiles district. 10th floor, manufacturing. 15th floor, Royal Palace stores.
Strauss is just gonna sit there with this can and just
19th floor, Bing.
That's awesome.
that.
He lets you off. Just
Thank
going
you.
home. 18th floor, and starts humming to himself. Noise. As you see him sort of slowly start to descend. You find yourself on the lower of the two Royal Palace floors. You can see outside, the whole thing is walled in glass on both floors. And you can see the sun starting to set slightly below the eternal forest of the Hennigan of Ethereal. And it's a beautiful sunset. The light is sort of streaking pink and orange and gold through the clouds. You see shadows cast onto the forest in miles away. It's a peaceful sight. You hear from somewhere off to your left the familiar sound of Atroniating. Ah, I did not expect you back so soon. Do you have news, Petty?
Well, we did confirm that it was cyanide poisoning. We're on the search for. Do you know anyone with a large scar and tattered wing? Kind of looks like this, and I hand her the sketch.
She takes it and looks at it, and she says, I do actually, yes. I think you had better come with me. And she leads you in kind of inside the palace into a back room. We sent you to try and find out who had perpetrated this act, if indeed it was. This person is somebody with a different skill set. We sent him out to bring justice. He has been conducting his own investigation. Why?
Well, because they were seen at the herbal shop asking for cyanide, and the cyanide happened to go missing when they refused to pay the full price.
You see her face fall.
Then
and she,
he was seen at the morgue taking the king's body.
that bit is quite all right. He was instructed to do so, but the cyanide, that's very disturbing. I think we need to have a chat with my cousin. And you see her face turn hard and stony. She takes Estrella. She wanders over to you and takes your hand. And she says, "I do not know why he brought you here, but you are large, strong. We may have need of that strength. Just be alert."
I will do my best.
I'm sure you will. She takes you into the heart of the palace, where a much smaller elevator resides, and ushers for you to both get inside it.
Okay.
She pulls on a rope, and this one is obviously counterweighted to work for a Hennigan hand rather than a lineage one, because even just on her own, she's able to scoot you up to the upper floor of the palace. with relative ease.
Okay.
You step off, and you see a group of Hennigan. You both recognize them. These are basically the members of the extended royal family. You see Estelier, Aelin and Rolim's son. You see Sylvan, Aelin's sister, and Therima beside her. And you see the various cousins, nieces, nephews, everybody who has royal power is essentially assembled in this one room.
Okay.
Atronia calls out to Sylvan, Sylvan, I would have a word with you, please. And you see Sylvan look over, and she sort of scuttles her way over on all fours. She then comes over and stands up. What is it, Atronia? What can I do for you? Atronia looks at the two of you.
Okay. So we are investigating the possible poisoning and came up with a few things. We did hear that you knew what was going on, possibly. You were warned or warning somebody.
Atronia stares fiercely at Sylvan, and Sylvan's face falls. She says, yes. Rolim came to me a fortnight ago. He asked me the strangest thing. He said, I know your politics. You are a social reformer, doing your best to heal the wounds between our peoples and those we used to hold in captivity. He said, tell me, what would you do if you were in my position? I told him, honestly, I said, I would continue my work, but I obviously with greater resource, I would pardon all who were part of the war. I would do away with the death duties, with indenturement to the nth generation. It's ridiculous. We must find a way to be at peace in this world. God knows what may come in the future, but I got the feeling it was not entirely hypothetical what he was saying. Then he came to me again 4 or 5 days ago. He said Aelin and he would not live much longer. And that we should be regents over Estelier. It broke my heart. My sister dying. But I swore I would take the agency, would it be offered, and do the best I could to heal our peoples. And she looks at Atronia and says, of course, the problem is now you know this. I could have stopped them. The poisoning. I knew what was happening. I could have interfered.
Who was doing the poisoning? Who's them?
She closes her eyes. God forgive me. It was Rolim himself.
Roland the king was poisoning himself?
And his wife. They lost the war 15 years ago, and they are icons for lineage captivity. They fought they was the last of a generation who for 300 years fought to keep, and she nods to Estellas, your people's enslaved.
Yes.
He viewed it as his last act as as a king. The queen herself, she had not the heart for it, but he felt it was the only way, by breaking the royal family, the line of kings, to put someone else in power. But it makes me an accomplice to her decide. So you are left with two options. I can take the regency with Theramer. We will marry and try and lead our people. Or you can reveal this guilt. There'll be a power vacuum across all of Ethereal, and our people will redescend into civil war.
I'm going to say to Petrie, we've already lost a lot. Do we really want to go back?
No, that's what we're fighting for, is to get your kind free. We don't want those ideals of the old kings to hold true to the future, and you and Decus and the rest of your race or peoples to be free. Everyone should be free to make their own choices, and those sound like, it sounds like her ideals and the way she's thinking, um, for everyone to be free. I That's kind of what I believe in.
Do we believe that she's telling us the truth and not just trying to take the, the,
Advantage.
the crown for herself?
Hmm. Uh, is there a way I can feel maybe her sincerity on that?
Yeah, so make me a lawyer check. With diplomacy.
Okay,
Oh,
so I
So that
get
should be a
5.
5 on top of your diplomacy.
Yep. Okay, so 9, so that's 19, 24.
wow.
24.
Wow.
Okay.
Yes.
There is a note of that of excitement. You feel like this is, but it doesn't feel like it's the sort of excitement of that she wants the throne. You get the feeling that it's the excitement of having the power to do,
Good.
to enact change.
Okay.
She seems sincere.
Okay.
At the same time, this will hand her essentially absolute power.
So I'll say, you seem sincere in what you want to do for the future of, our kind, and to free Estella's race. And I'm really concerned about Decus. I was speaking with him down at the morgue, and he's really gone through a lot, and it's not his fault, that he's suffering. So, again, I feel your sincerity, and I think that your ideals would be good for the people. So I would be willing, and if Stella is willing to keep this to ourselves.
I will keep it to myself, but I think that there should be a lineage represented in all dealings with this
I like
kingdom.
that. I like that.
She nods. She says, it will be done. Theramir had told me of you, actually, Petrie. I thought I recognized you.
Theremin spoke of me?
And she takes you under her wing a second. She says, I am not surprised that you would know what it is to be partly responsible for the death of others. And you feel her hand run soothingly down the back of your head. It's not in a sexual thing. It's just it's a sort of comforting.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, I feel relaxed. I feel confident in this, and I'll just say, again, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for what all of our people have gone through, and we just want to make it right, and that's what I'm here to do.
Thank you. This will not be easy, but
anything you need, I am here to help you. Paperwork, documents, laws, we can work together to make the kingdom great again.
Make Ethereal great again. She smiles and says, you may come to regret those words. We will have work. But I thank you. Maybe our people will have a future. And I think that's probably a decent place to leave that there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And scene.
Wow, that was great. I love the choice at the end that really kind of.
Yeah.
Do you do what's right or do you do what's right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which one is the more right to do?
Yeah. Do you uphold the laws that as a lawyer you are supposed to protect?
Right.
Or do you do what's right for 25 million people?
Right.
Pick.
I really enjoyed this session because it wasn't about combat.
It wasn't.
It was about. It was almost. It reminded me kind of like a Sherlock Holmes. Because we went finding clues. We followed those clues. We got to disguise ourselves and do things that you normally don't do in like D&D, or you might not do in D&D. And I just liked the way it played out, and there wasn't a lot of rolling. There was very little rolling to have to worry about, but it constantly kept me thinking the whole time, like, okay, if I say this or if I do this, how is that person going to react? Or, being a noble, being a lawyer, how would my character respond?
And I kind of took a more reserved role, and I purposely did that because, like, I kept on feeling degraded as like being called a pet, like the whole like to start out. So I'm just like, okay, well, evidently I'm viewed as like second rate. So what's that?
You're almost like a possession.
Right. So I'm just not going to acknowledge these people. I am just going to just interject when absolutely needed. And then you kind of picked up on it that, like, do you really care about this? And I'm like, no, not really. These people are kind of not my favorite people in this existence.
They're pretty much next to you.
Right.
Just because of your birth. Like, there's nothing that you've done. There's nothing. And it's almost like the worst kind of racism. Yeah. It's totally impersonal. It's not that I don't disparage you. It's not even that I dislike you. It's just, you're just not real people.
Right.
Yeah. And that's why I pointed that Dex's past. It's not his fault.
No, he's being punished for his father's role.
Exactly.
And so get that stuff out of the kingdom, and then work on what's going to be best for everybody, not just that particular race.
Now, I will say, Jake has been watching pretty much the whole session, and Jake does have had a couple questions and some comments. Let's just. Jake says, "I can attest that the legal field requires ridiculous hours." So,
Oh yeah.
Let's see here. He had a question about the pledges for the Kickstarter, and we'll address that now. He's wondering, is the shipping included with the physical pledges, or will that be taken care of separately after?
Yeah, sure. So we're shipping worldwide. Shipping globally is £5. We're basically going to subsidize that slightly. I'd rather have it slightly cheaper and just make it a flat rate for everybody who's not UK. If you're UK, shipping's free. That's fine.
Nice, okay.
We're going to be partnering with Amazon with their FBA program to handle all fulfillment logistics. I've worked with those guys before. It's awesome. The service they provide is great. So that's how we're handling that. So yeah, it's just if you're outside the UK, basically it's flat £5. Done.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Peter, where can folks find you online? Let's talk a little bit about that, and maybe where maybe they might see TRIUMVENE going forward.
For sure. So you can find me on Twitter. My RPG account for all this kind of stuff is @TRIUMVENE. My personal one for if you're interested in marketing, technology, business, all that kind of stuff is @Watson-Wailes. We're also on Facebook, which is TRIUMVENE as well. TRIUMVENE.com. I mean, just like stick TRIUMVENE into your favorite search engine, and it's all
nice.
Yeah. The Kickstarter's live now. It's TRIUMVENE on Kickstarter. Weird, I know. We're at let's see what we are at the minute. Let's find out how many pledges we've got in this 2 and a bit hours. We're at 372% funded, 236 backers, 19 days to go. If this has been your sort of thing, if you think that you'd like a little less combat in your RPGs, that's what we're all about. We're trying to build a community around non-combat based RPGs and multi-tenant, multi-session tabletop role-playing groups. We'd love to have you as part of that community.
Absolutely. No, I think you're doing a great job, and I can't wait to see the final product once it's all out. Now, you did say that you were at the UK Games Expo. Did you run any games at that, or did you?
It's actually my last time I was there as a punter. I thought, you know what, I could go and do it as a thing, and I thought, I've got some friends coming down. I've not seen them in a while. They'd come down from Cambridge. I thought, let's just hang out and enjoy.
Sure.
But I caught up with some friends while I was there, and played some great stuff from Fantasy Flight Games.
Nice.
To them. Picked up some good stuff. Saw Grant Howitt and some.
Oh, Grant's great. Yep.
So yeah, I totally fanboyed. It was terrible.
That's all right.
But yeah, so that was great. But we're going to be going to a whole bunch of stuff next year. Basically, if it's a convention in the UK, we will be there. Anybody who is into this, I'd love to hang out with you and chat about whatever it is that you're playing, whether it's us or 5th edition or Fate or Numenera or whatever. It's all good.
Nice. Jake says, really good session, guys. I really like the non-combat focus. So cool. Sounds like Jake's really digging it as much as we are. So that's
if you haven't already.
Yeah. Go back TRIUMVENE on Kickstarter. Peter, I want to thank you again for taking time out of your night to. I know it's much later there than it is here,
it's an absolute pleasure and a privilege. Thank you.
Well, I am so excited to feature you and have you on the show. And Josh, thank you again for coming on and doing this with me again.
Anytime, Doug.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. I'm going to say, everyone, go back TRIUMVENE on Kickstarter. Peter's making some cool stuff. I can't wait to see what the future of this whole project is going to be. I don't think that this is just a one-shot thing. I think it's going to be something that you're going to see years and years down the road, which is really exciting. And I can't wait to see this just be the beginning of something really, really huge for Peter. If you like this video, please give it a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed. I think that's going to do it for us. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat or in the comments, and I'll be glad to answer them. But otherwise, go click on the link and check out the Kickstarter. You've got 20, I think it's almost 20 days left on there. It might be 19 now to back. And Peter, are you going to have a late backer option?
Honestly, I haven't thought about that yet. My guess is probably I'll work that out in probably sometime this week. Assume so.
Okay. So even if you're watching this after,
if you miss out on it, like we're ordering a lot of copies, so you'll be able to buy it on the site. We'll be setting up a store, so
nice.
You'll be able to get hold of it.
Nice, and I put all the links to Triumph in the comments or in the description of this video too. So even if the Kickstarter is come and gone, please click on those links and check it out. That's going to do it for us tonight. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This has been Victory Condition Gaming, because winning shouldn't be the only victory condition when you get to the table. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a beautiful time.